This is Discovering the Scriptures with Peter John Parisis. We're now in Daniel chapter 2, verse 13. Reading in context first, which means verse 12 and verse 13. King James Version, quote, "For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain," unquote. Now we're going to focus on verse 13, quote, "And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain." Now let's go ahead and read this in Young's literal translation to pull out any differences we can in meanings. Quote, "And the sentence hath gone forth, and the wise men are being slain, and they have sought Daniel and his companions to be slain," unquote. Now you'll notice there is a difference between the King James and the Young's literal. So let's look at the Interlinear Bible and look at the direct translation. Because on the King James, we are not given that they're being slain right now. So let's look at this. This is the reading of the raw translation, quote, "And they sought, they began killing, and wise men thee went out, so decree thee, to kill them, and his companions, Daniel," unquote. So right now we have in this direct translation in the Aramaic language that Daniel is giving us about the account, they started killing these wise men. And now they're seeking the companions of Daniel in himself, is what this is giving us. So now, let's go ahead and take a look, since we see some major differences and a lot's going on here. We need to find out, what is Daniel trying to communicate to us that was told to him by one of the guards, officials of Nebuchadnezzar, and he is relating this in their language, so there's no miscommunication problems. So let's find out what he's trying to give us, and we're going to parse this out in Aramaic. "And the decree went forth." Now let's parse this "went forth." It is a PL stem, so that is identical to a quell in the Hebrew, which is basically a simple or casual action. And it's a perfect aspect, which means it's a completed action. So we have a casual action that has been completed. So they went forth. That the wise men should be slain. Now let's parse out the Aramaic word for men should be slain. And that is in the Ithpeal. It's Ithpeal. And that is similar to the Hephiel in Hebrew. So let's see what we have here. That is primarily a reflective action, and it's an infinitive aspect. So basically you can put an ing on the end of that to get that for you. So the men should be slain, and they sought. Now let's do the Aramaic word for it, and they sought. That's a PL stem, so that's just a casual, perfect aspect, which means that it is a completed one. And they sought. So right now we know that this action is completed. They sought and they have found Daniel and his fellows to be slain, is the end of this verse. Parsing that out, it's a Ithpeal stem, and that means that we have a reflective action, and it's a to be aspect, basically. So we have here that they have sought and found Daniel and his fellows to be slain. That's where we are in this verse. So now let's see what we have on the commentaries on this to give us more insight. I'm going to go ahead and read you John Gill's commentary from the 1700s, because it gives us some insight and it follows what the verse is giving us. Quote, "And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain," or, "and the wise men were slain," as the Septuagint, Vulgate Latin, and Syriac versions render it. So the orders were given by the king to his proper officers, and his edict was published, and his will made known in the usual manner, upon which the wise men, at least some of them, were slain, very probably those who were in the king's presence and at court, and the officers were gone out to slay the rest. And they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain, who had the character of wise men, and might be envied at court. And so the officers took this opportunity, having these orders to slay them. There was no doubt a particular providence that Daniel and his friends should not be at court at this time. Both the vanity of the Chaldean wisdom and arts might be the more manifest and made known, and the divine and superior wisdom and knowledge of Daniel might be conspicuous, and his fame be spread in Babylon and other provinces. Unquote. So we already know that Daniel has said that this is in the second year, which represents the second year of Daniel's ministry under Nebuchadnezzar's takeover of them. So that means that Daniel and his fellows still have one more year to finish to stand before the king and be inquired to find out, are they good enough to stand before me? Well, obviously, right now, they're not, because they're in the second year and they have another year also to finish, because it's a 3-year period, as we learned earlier. So they're not at court. And it's obvious because they were not slain. Had they been at court, they would have been slain because they couldn't have given an answer. But they're not. And Daniel, he's here because he's been sought, him and his friends, and they've been found. So we know that they're not at court, which means they didn't hear what we've read earlier. So this is related to him by, as we'll see in the next verse, one of the officials of the king, and Daniel is relating this whole incident in their language. There's no chance of miscommunication whatsoever here. So Daniel has already learned this language, and he has got the idioms down, it seems, because he's putting this down in their language and not in Hebrew. That's where we are today. Let's find out more about this story as it unfolds in the next few verses. May God richly bless you as you go along your way studying the Scriptures. God bless.